Not kings, but in at least one respect, they enjoy the privilege of royalty. Under the Constitution, a president's authority to pardon people for federal offenses or grant clemency in such cases is, depending on which legal scholar you ask, either absolute or very nearly so. So today, when the president issued yet another pardon, few, if any, questioned his power to do it. But there are questions about his judgment and intent, especially whether he's using this and other pardons to send a message to anyone contemplating a plea deal in the Russia investigation. Hang tough, keep quiet, I'll take care of you would be the message. Dinesh D'Souza, who he pardoned today, is a right-wing author and filmmaker who pleaded guilty to campaign finance violations. He's also an Obama and Clinton hater and the author of tweets like these. A photo of President Obama reading, "You can take the boy out of the ghetto." D'Souza has also written that slavery was not a racist institution and supports President Trump's conspiracy theory about a spy in his campaign. The president pardoned him today. He also said he's thinking about commuting the sentence of former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, a Democrat who, among his other corrupt acts, tried to sell President Obama's vacated Senate seat. Additionally, the president says he's considering a pardon for Martha Stewart, convicted of lying to federal investigators. So in those three, you've got public corruption, campaign cash violations, and lying to the feds. Now, keep it honest, those are the same or similar charges that members of Team Trump either are or could be facing. But those aren't the only through lines and interesting patterns in this pardon puzzle. There's also the appearance of presidential payback. Both Blagojevich and Stewart have ties to fired FBI Director James Comey, who, you might have heard, the president isn't too fond of. Comey was the U.S. attorney who prosecuted Stewart. Former U.S. Attorney Patrick Fitzgerald, who prosecuted Blagojevich, is a Comey friend and currently a member of his legal team. He also investigated the Valerie Plame leak, which led to the conviction of Scooter Libby for lying to the FBI. As you know, the president pardoned Libby last month. So is contemplation of a pardon for Martha Stewart a shot at Comey's legacy? Maybe. But there are other connections to contemplate as well. Dinesh D'Souza was prosecuted by Preet Bharara, who President Trump fired and is currently working as a CNN legal analyst. He and Comey are critics of the president. So was the D'Souza pardon done to zing Bharara? Again, possibly. But there are still other connections to contemplate. And this one starts with reality and ends with show. Both the former governor and the lifestyle guru appeared on the president's former reality show, The Apprentice, which Citizen Trump once plugged on her program.
So, Donald, how's your new Apprentice? Is it going to be like?
I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's on Thursday night, and it's really going to be. I think it's the best we've done thus far.
Well, there are other points of commonality in the pardons, potential pardons, and clemency, the language used to justify them. Each, the president says, was treated unfairly or harshly unfairly or unbelievably unfairly, which is also the kind of language he uses to describe his own treatment by the Mueller probe.
The point here is, while we were away, Donald Trump issued his very first pardon, and it was a doozy.
A legal lightning bolt from President Trump late Friday. A presidential pardon for Arizona's controversial anti-illegal immigration hardliner, Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
That's right. Donald Trump pardons Joe Arpaio, a man who answers the question, what if a decaying russet potato somehow hated Mexicans?
The budget blueprint calls for a $54 billion increase in defense spending. Take a look at this graphic. On the left, you see departments getting an increase. That would be defense, Homeland Security, Veterans Affairs, the agencies facing cuts, the Environmental Protection Agency, the State Department, the Agriculture Department, the Labor Department, Health and Human Services, and the list goes on and on.
You know what? It is sort of fitting that the list of budget cuts scroll by like the end credits for America. Thanks for helping us out, Agriculture Department. Hope you find a gig with the next country that rises from our ashes. So that is where we are currently at. We have a president capable of standing in the rain and saying it was a sunny day. And before we go any further, Donald Trump lies is clearly not a fresh observation. Liberals are probably thinking, wow, hot take there, Johnny. Next, you're going to tell me that Obama is aloof, Dick Cheney is evil, and Paul Ryan doesn't climax until he checks his Fitbit to see how many calories he's burned from f***ing. And you know what? But despite their success, small groups are both sceptical and vocal about vaccines, which is nothing new. But these days, their voice has been amplified by the human megaphone that is the President of the United States.
I am totally in favor of vaccines, but I want smaller doses over a longer period of time. Because you take a baby in, and I've seen it, and I had my children taken care of over a long period of time, over a 2 or 3 year period of time. Same exact amount. But you take this little beautiful baby and you pump, I mean, it looks just like it's meant for a horse, not for a child.
That is Donald Trump on the campaign trail raising doubts about vaccinations, and that is a sentiment that he's also expressed online with a tweet reading, "Tiny children are not horses." And that is an assertion that PolitiFact rates, yeah, I mean, I guess technically we've got to give him that, but no. The Border Patrol are the people in green uniforms who literally patrol the boundaries of our country. There are around 20,000 of them. But Trump, in an executive order, has called for them to add 5,000 more to tackle the many problems that he sees on our southern border.
Let's stop the drugs and the crime from pouring into our country.
You can certainly have terrorists. You can certainly have Islamic terrorists. You can have anything coming across the border.
We're going to have a strong, strong, strong border that people are going to respect, and the drugs are not going to be flowing across like gravy.
Now, that right there is what happens when Donald Trump starts a sentence feeling xenophobic and ends it feeling hungry. We need to stop Mexicans coming in like hot fudge sundaes coming into my tummy. 3 scoops, whipped cream, no cherry, because I don't do fruit. But Trump promising to bring back coal jobs is undeniably potent, and to listen to his EPA administrator, it's a promise that he's already keeping.
Since the last fourth quarter of last year till most recently, added almost 50,000 jobs in the coal sector. In the month of May alone, almost 7,000 jobs.
OK, so the only problem there is that those numbers are bullshit. The Bureau of Labour Statistics says the actual number of coal jobs created since last year has been just 1,300. So that 50,000 new jobs claim was off by 48,700, which for this administration is actually uncharacteristically accurate. I just assumed that the figure would be more like 12 mining jobs, and they're not actually jobs, they're lobsters, and Trump didn't create them, he just remembers 12 times in his life that he saw a lobster.
Denials and deflections. The White House refuses to talk about a joke one employee made about John McCain's terminal illness.
Yeah, it's true. A Trump aide joked that John McCain's opposition to Trump's pick for CIA director didn't matter because he's dying anyway. And that is shocking, but it's also not really surprising. These days, Trump aide says something awful isn't really news, it's just an assumed fact. Like gravity, or the fact that young Sheldon will someday grow up and look nothing like Jim Parsons, and then all hell will break loose because the world can't handle an inconsistency like that. But tonight, let's ignore all of that and instead focus on the busy week for one person in particular, Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's personal lawyer, and a lawyer so shitty he made Trump say, "I need someone good, get me Rudy Giuliani on the phone." Think about that. Think about that. But let's put all that aside and instead focus on a lesser-known member of the Trump circus, Ryan Zinke, the Secretary of the Interior, a man doing a job that Trump definitely fully understands.
I have to really talk about a very special guy that I made Secretary of the Interior. Does he know the Interior? He knows it. He loves it. He loves seeing it and writing on it.
What the fuck are you talking about? You sound less like a president trying to introduce a member of his cabinet and more like a guy at a yard sale trying to sell a couch that he definitely fucked. Oh, do I know this couch? I love this couch. I love seeing it and riding on it. And you know what? I just decided she's not for sale. Leave us alone. Get out of here. Give us some privacy. But Trump's support for this clearly terrible idea seemed to develop over the week. He actually focus grouped it on Wednesday during a listening session featuring survivors of the shooting, a session, incidentally, for which his own notes included a reminder to say, "I hear you," which is what you might write down if you were a robot pretending to be a person, pretending to be a robot, pretending to be a person. And not surprisingly, arming some teachers did not go down too well in that room. Watch what happened when he asked for a show of hands.
Does anybody like that idea here? Does anybody like it? Right? Yes? The meadow, your beautiful meadow. We talked about that. And do people feel strongly against it? Anybody? Anybody? Strongly against it? All right. I mean, look, we can understand both sides.
That is Donald Trump in a nutshell, proposing a terrible idea in a tone-deaf way, then refusing to acknowledge he just lost the popular vote. Dialysis can be a truly exhausting process. You're typically sitting in a chair, physically attached to a machine for 3-4-hour sessions a week. And Americans have been at increasing risk of needing it because chronic kidney disease is the 9th leading cause of death in the United States. And while a lucky few manage to get transplants, for many, dialysis is their only option to stay alive. But interestingly here, while America spends more, by some accounts, than any other nation on dialysis care, we have one of the industrialized world's highest mortality rates. So we're spending the most to essentially get the least. We're basically paying for a fully loaded Lamborghini and receiving a drunk donkey on roller skates. But the point here is, nuclear waste, the radioactive and toxic byproducts from making nuclear energy and weapons, is a serious health hazard, and America has a lot of it.
There are more than 71,000 tons of nuclear waste stranded at the nation's 104 reactors. Put all those spent fuel rods together and you'd get a pile as big as a football field and more than 20 feet tall.
Or you could put them in a pile as big as 2 football fields and 10 feet tall, or half a football field and 40 feet tall, or 20 football fields 1 foot tall. The point is, we have a lot of nuclear waste and it's very fun to play with. But watch what happens when those same people are asked a simple follow-up.
What would you say the Dalai Lama does?
Oh, nah, I have no idea. I'm not even gonna lie.
I don't know. I'm not really sure. He's a very important figure for Hinduism.
That's a Buddhist god, right? Nah?
No, not a god. He's a real person. He's alive.
Oh, shit.
He just said, oh shit, like he owes the Dalai Lama money. He's alive, oh shit, I've got to disappear for a while. That guy does not fuck around. Tonight, we need to talk about an issue that is impacting it. Net neutrality. If that term rings a bell, we actually talked about it in our 5th ever episode 3 years ago. A piece that got a weird amount of attention.
Last Week Tonight with John Oliver has languished in relative obscurity since its debut in April. But this week, an Oliver diatribe about net neutrality went viral.
Hey, fuck you, lady! I didn't languish in relative obscurity. I thrived in relative obscurity. Relative obscurity is my middle name. On TV and in real life, forensic science plays an important role in criminal convictions. Prosecutors often complain about a so-called CSI effect, where jurors expect to see forensic evidence in every case. The problem is, not all forensic science is as reliable as we've become accustomed to believe. A report in 2009 by the National Academy of Sciences found that many forensic sciences do not meet the fundamental requirements of science. And a report last year by a Presidential Science Council agreed, saying that expert witnesses have often overstated the value of their evidence, going far beyond what the relevant science can justify.
This is the American Health Care Act.
Yes, it's finally here, the American Health Care Act. You may not have wanted it, it looks awful, but it's here anyway. Try and think of it as the legislative equivalent of Pirates of the Caribbean 5, The Curse of Johnny Depp getting divorced and needing the money. And as will be the case with that movie, the early reviews of this thing have been rough. But for Liberals, the popular assumption is that Jared and Ivanka will be moderating influences. Basically, if Trump is thinking about pressing a button labelled Nuke Earth, they will, on behalf of all of us, guide his hand towards the button labelled, hey, maybe don't. The bad news is, the information they got could well be all this.
It's your name, social security number, birth date, driver's license, and addresses where you lived. Information that is mostly permanent unless you're in federal witness protection.
Wow. OK, so that does sound bad, but here is a simple solution. Just move 145 million people into the witness protection program. That means Joneses, you are the Thompsons. Thompsons, you're the Campbells. Campbells, you're the Mendozas. Mendozas, you're the Joneses. Wait, hold on. Joneses, you shouldn't be there. I made you the Thompsons. No, Thompsons, I made you the Campbells. Campbells, you're the Mendozas. Mendozas, why are you there? You should be living in the Joneses' house in Phoenix. Oh, no, I shouldn't have said Phoenix. Oh, God, the Joneses are dead! The Joneses are dead! Forget the whole plan, I was just trying to help! I'm sorry for trying! Oh, they're dead! And I know... And here's the thing. People did come. Some apparently paid thousands of dollars to own a wax president, and it later turned out there were some notable buyers among them.
We got our very own life-size wax president. That is President Eisenhower.
Is it? Is it, though? Because to me, it looks like you may have just bought a wax sculpture of Bill O'Reilly covering his erection with a magazine. But it wasn't just Maddow. Stephen Colbert got one too.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for your Late Show president, Zachary Taylor.
Well, congratulations, Stephen. Although it is worth pointing out that Zachary Taylor died of a stomach bug 16 months into office, so he's really less of a president and more a guy named Zach who shit his brains out in the West Wing men's room.
M&A has been hot, continues to be hot.
An exciting year for M&A.
A few blockbuster deals being announced. They call it Merger Monday on Wall Street. It is shaping up to be another Merger Monday.
They don't call it Merger Monday for nothing.
Media mega Merger Monday. Merger Monday? At last we have one, and I say...
OK, that is obviously a little nauseating, but also pressing a button on TV is a little bit dangerous because someone could take that footage and then loop any sound that they want under there. Now, obviously, I am not immature enough to do that, but if I were, it would look like this.
Merger Monday? At last we have one, and I say...
Over 6 years ago, I lived in a pretty decent house, and one day I heard a knock on the door, and before I knew it, my colleagues from the other side of the aisle had let a goat loose in my house. Now, for 6 years, that goat has been messing in and destroying my house. I want to renovate my house, but before I can, I have to get the goat out of the house before it does any more damage. It makes no sense to start fixing up my house until we get the goat out. Voting for the fiscal year 17 budget resolution gets this goat out of my house.
That is so specific. There is just no way that goat incident didn't actually happen. I bet he brings it up all the time. Mr. Speaker, NAFTA is like when you're half asleep one morning, you put your arm around what you think is your wife, but lo and behold, it's that goat again. And you wonder, why is it wearing my wife's perfume? Get this goat out of my house, y'all. Now, look, ideally, the first thing you should know about the Alex Jones Show is nothing. But unfortunately, it is an important part of a lot of people's media diets. An estimated 6 million people listen to his radio show or watch it online every week. And we know at least one Jones fan seems to be current Russian ambassador to the United States, Donald Trump. He supposedly called Jones after the election, has tweeted content from InfoWars and one of its editors, and just a year and a half ago even appeared on his show.
I just want to finish by saying your reputation's amazing. I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot.
The only thing that could have made that moment any grosser is if Nigel Farage, Bill Cosby and Phil Spector were all on the same call. Now, tensions have sharply escalated this week, which is a little surprising, given that the world has been dealing with North Korea's provocative missile tests for years now. Just 2 weeks ago, they were doing this.
North Korea fires yet another missile, but Pyongyang claims this one will be able to hit the U.S. mainland, striking cities like Los Angeles, Denver, Chicago, and possibly even New York and Boston.
Wait, New York? I live in New York. This shit just got real. You know, I think if everyone is really honest, your level of fear over the North Korea situation is in direct proportion to whether or not they can hit the exact place where you live. We filmed this show on 57th Street. If you told me that the blast radius stops at 56th Street, I'd think, well, I hope nothing happens, but we've still got time before things get serious. Now, as it stands, 44 states now have some form of medical marijuana law, and 8 have laws allowing recreational use. And that is good news. The war on drugs was futile, expensive, and imposed overly harsh penalties, especially on African Americans, who police data suggest are over 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession. Although, interestingly, white people are 1 million times more likely to be shocked by that statistic. And this is clearly no longer a fringe issue.
In 1969, a Gallup poll showed 12% favored legalization. Today, it's 60%.
Exactly. Marijuana is something we've just all gradually decided is okay. Like Mark Wahlberg as a serious actor. You know what? Sure, I've decided I'm fine with that. If you're like me, the implications of this have been hitting you in waves. 1 minute you're numb, and the next minute you realise that Donald Trump, this man, will soon have access to the nuclear codes. And then maybe you get distracted by daily life until it hits you again. Oh, our future president was supported by a former Grand Wizard of the Klan, and 60 million people voted for him despite that. And then maybe you finally manage to get some sleep, but then you wake up realising, oh shit, the Supreme Court. Because remember Merrick Garland, who the Republicans have refused to confirm all year? You know, the guy whom we asked you to choose a Supreme Court dog for. You actually picked this one, by the way. We never announced it because we figured that we would tell you when he was confirmed. Well, he's not getting confirmed, and that dog is dead now.
A disaster for the UK Prime Minister tonight. Theresa May's Conservatives suffering a stunning setback.
Her goal of securing a stronger hand for Brexit negotiations has backfired spectacularly. The snap general election has ended with a hung parliament.
Yes, this was a clusterfuck, or to be more precise, a crumpet fuck of epic proportions. Theresa May is hanging on to her job by a thread. To stay in power, she's attempting to cut a distasteful deal with the DUP, a hardline, anti-gay, anti-abortion party in Northern Ireland, which has opened her up to even more criticism. Meanwhile, there are rumours of a leadership challenge from within her own party by Boris Johnson, a grown man who perpetually looks like a 7-year-old who's just spun in circles for 2 minutes and is about to throw up. But the tricky thing is, if you're going to have something that even looks like an election, you badly need at least the appearance of an opponent. And he did get one of those, kind of.
The only man to stand against President Sisi is Musa Mustafa Musa, an openly pro-Sisi politician who, until the day before he registered to run, was part of the campaign to get Sisi re-elected.
It's true. One of his own supporters jumped into the race at the last minute, submitting his candidacy just 15 minutes before the deadline. And until the morning of his nomination, Musa's own Facebook page said, "Long live Egypt, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi for president." And look, hey, maybe that was just a glitch on Egyptian Facebook. You know, like the one on America's Facebook, where they allowed your personal data to be accessed by a firm working to elect Donald Trump president of the United States. But look, Farmville was super fun, wasn't it? So it was all worth it at the end of the day. To the fact that that man was born in 1969, a year after the Andy Griffith Show went off the air, which I guess means that he may never have actually seen it, because not only did Sheriff Andy Taylor not carry a gun, he was happy to explain why.
When a man carries a gun all the time, the respect he thinks he's getting might really be fear. So I don't carry a gun because I don't want the people of Mayberry to fear a gun. I'd rather they would respect me.
Yeah, the sheriff has got a point. And the people of Mayberry did respect him, despite the fact, and this is true, he ate Tide Pods all the time. Now, meanwhile, the Trump administration had another chaotic week, from Mueller's Russia indictments to continuing questions surrounding Rob Porter and who knew what when about his alleged domestic violence, to Trump's newly reported affair with a former Playboy model, a different sordid affair from that other sordid affair that you might be thinking of. Instead of getting sucked down a White House rabbit hole yet again this week, let's instead focus on Russia, where the movie The Revenant was marketed as Lucky Man Has Fun Time. Now, Russia has been the centre of allegations regarding former double agent Sergei Skripal, who, along with his daughter, was found poisoned on a park bench in Britain 2 weeks ago. And by this week, it seemed there was a consensus on who was responsible.
The United States joined European leaders today in blaming Russia for poisoning a former spy, Sergei Skripal. In a joint statement, the U.S., Britain, France, and Germany all said that there is, quote, no plausible alternative explanation for the nerve agent attack.
Basically, every country agrees that Russia did this, which is incredible. We can't even get the world to agree on a single shape for electrical outlets. What the fuck is that one, by the way? It looks like I'm plugging my laptop into the killer from Scream.
Did you know Don Blankenship's trial was not about the mine explosion?
Really? You sure?
Oh, yeah. The Obama judge wouldn't even let Don mention the explosion, and the Obama prosecutors knew Don had nothing to do with the explosion.
West Virginians knew that Obama was against them and Cole. Now they understand what happened when Don fought back.
I'm voting for Don.
Now that I know the whole truth, me too.
Cool. Now, of all the insane things in that ad, from that man clearly drinking from an empty coffee mug to to the term Obama judge. Perhaps the weirdest is that all those two people seem to need to know in order to vote for Blankenship is that he didn't blow up a mine. That's it. They may as well have said, is Don Blankenship the Golden State Killer? No, they caught that guy. Well, that's all I need to know. I'm voting for Don. Cheers. So for now, let's move on to North Korea, a country led by a man who is both a brutal dictator and also the only person who's ever been excited to get a picture taken with Mike Pompeo. Now, the proposed summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un is scheduled to take place on June 12th, but this week it hit a major snag.
North Korea now says it may call off Kim Jong-un's meeting with President Trump over U.S. demands to denuclearize the Korean peninsula.
Yes, the summit is now in jeopardy for a number of reasons, from the fact that both sides apparently have different definitions of what denuclearization means, to North Korea's objections to the US and South Korea holding a joint training exercise called Max Thunder, which incidentally sounds way too much like a porn name for a military exercise. It's as if the Bin Laden raid had been called Operation Dick Thick Hog Bin Laden Goes Down. And things got even worse because Pruitt also took flack this week for the fact that when he first moved to DC, he paid just $50 a night to stay in a condo linked to a prominent energy lobbyist, which, for the whole Drain the Swamp administration, is particularly hard to take. And his pushback was frankly pathetic.
That is something that, again, has been reviewed by ethics officials here. They've said that it's market rate.
You're renting it from the wife of a lobbyist.
You could go on Craigslist today, and it's been done in the last week.
But a cabinet secretary is going to go on
Craigslist today shows rentals for one bedroom of less than $1,000 so, on Capitol Hill near.
I've never heard of an apartment like that. I've lived in Washington over 25 years.
Well,
now, I know that $50 a night sounds ridiculous, but the boycott train hit a bit of a snag when it ran into one of the NRA's lesser-known side ventures.
One group that hasn't been swayed yet, big tech companies like Apple, Amazon, and Roku. You see, these companies' streaming services still offer access to NRA TV, the gun lobby group's free online channel focused on pro-gun content.
OK, so that is an uncomfortable situation for Apple and Amazon, but it's a fucking miracle for Roku. Harry, get in here! Someone just called us a big tech company! They said, like Amazon and Apple, it's happening, Harry! It's happening! But, now, Cohen dominated the news for days, particularly when it emerged that Donald Trump was not the only political figure for whom he'd arranged hush money.
Top Republican fundraiser Elliot Broidy says Cohen negotiated a settlement, reportedly worth $1.6 million, with a former Playboy playmate who claims she became pregnant as a result of a consensual affair. Today, Broidy resigned his post.
Yes, the deputy finance chair of the RNC cheated on his wife with a former Playboy model and paid her off and has now resigned, presumably, so he can start his new job as a big old bullfrog who sits on a lily pad all the do-da day. Now, the only problem with that is that we consulted some linguistics experts, and it turns out, and this is true, there's already a word for women's heroes, and it's the word heroes. It's a little like the word sheroes, only it's not stupid, and it is a word. Now, Mattel fared a little better with their new line of inspiring women Barbie dolls, which is a nice idea. The problem there was that one local newscaster somehow found a way to make it creepy.
The three inspiring women dolls are aviator Amelia Earhart, artist Frida Kahlo, and mathematician Katherine Johnson. I love the Frida Kahlo one. She's dressed up.
Salma Hayek, right? The movie?
Oh, yeah, there you go. So you like that movie, yeah?
I like Selma.
Oh, you like Salma Hayek.
I like Selma.
Okay.
It was a segment about women's empowerment, children's toys, and a long-dead artist, but he decided, I can perv out on this, I will perv out on this. With God as my witness, I will make this Women's Day segment about my dick.